All right, joining us on the line today is NFL Vice President of Broadcasting, Mike North. Now, Mike has what we would all deem to be a pretty cool job because we wait for weeks and months sometimes for the NFL's upcoming regular season playing schedule to be released. And then it gets released, and then we chew on it, and we talk about it, and we have opinions about it, and we love it. It's like Christmas in the off season. But Mike, as I'm sure he's going to tell you, he looks at it a different way, and it gets to this point, and he's just relieved that it's over. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah, that's definitely a big part of it. Those weeks or months that everybody's sitting around waiting, those are a lot of sleepless nights for us, a lot of panic and anxiety and terror and hope and prayer. It's a, thankless job if you think about the fact that, everybody gets something, nobody gets everything they want. Mm-hmm. So you know that everybody's going to be looking at this thing, looking for flaws, looking for things to be disappointed about, and they're going to find them. Yeah. So everybody's going to be a little disappointed, hopefully equally.
Yeah, and, Vikings fans have seen a piece or two about the process of making the schedule on our website because you and some of your compadres have been kind enough to give us some access and some information and do some interviews, and so we appreciate that. But maybe for folks who need a refresher, or maybe folks who haven't seen that, talk a little bit about the human element of it combined with the computer element that you guys have. And then also I think it'd be interesting to hear, what is the commissioner's role in making the schedule?
The entire process is a combination of art and science. Our boss, Howard Katz, who has been in charge of the scheduling process for the last 15 years or so, has a picture in his mind when we get into that room. We literally start the day after the regular season ends. That's when the 256 matchups for next season. And then he's got a feel for which of these games belong in prime time, which of these games are going to be on Thanksgiving, which of the games we're going to put in London or Mexico, which team had the early bye last year so you don't want to give them the early bye again, or who's finished on the road for consecutive seasons and it's really their turn to have a home game in week 17. So he's got a picture in his mind, and we use the computers and a lot of math and science to try to guide use his picture in his mind to guide our search. The solution space is infinite. I mean, truly hundreds and hundreds of trillions of possibilities. And we're looking for the magical, mythical, perfect unicorn schedule that satisfies all 32 teams and all 5 network partners. And as you can imagine, that schedule probably doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. So it's really a question of striking the right balance and figuring out, what is okay to do, what can we rationalize, what can we justify, and what would constitute, a fatal flaw in a schedule. You could have 31 happy teams and 5 happy network partners and one team really, really disappointed. And if so, that schedule probably has to go in the garbage. So that's where the commissioner sort of gets involved. Howard and the commissioner meet regularly throughout the scheduling process, so he's never blindsided by our plans, our pursuits, our expectations. And if he's got some thoughts, he's certainly not shy about letting us know what those are.
Yeah.
And then at the end, we sort of come to a few finalist contender schedules and sort of lay out for the commissioner, here's the good and the bad, here's the pros and the cons. And, he too has a picture in his mind as to, whose turn is it to get the short straw, or who should we make sure to take care of this year if we owe him one for last year. So there's a lot of human element in terms of, are we comfortable with this? Can we justify it? Can we explain it? While also a lot of math and science trying to figure out how much of the solution space have we seen. Is it 0.1% or is it 82.6%? And the more of the solution space you see, the more confident you are that you're converging on optimal, and that schedule you're holding in your hand may well be the best one you're going to find.
Yeah, and I've heard you talk before where it's like, you're getting different prospects, that are acceptable every single day, and the one that's the best to that point you'll pin up on the wall, but then you'll ask the computers to keep going, right? So I mean, it's a process that you get to a conclusion, but you have to make sure it's the exact right one and not reach the conclusion too early, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of the advancements in the software and the hardware over the 15, 20 years that I've been fortunate enough to be involved in this process, it used to be, back in the days of Val Pinchbeck, he would build one schedule by hand. It would take him all 10 weeks, and then he'd hand that schedule to the commissioner, and the commissioner would say, "All right, who am I going to get a call from tomorrow? Who's going to be disappointed?"
Yeah.
Hopefully now, he's still going to get those calls, but at least we can tell him that we looked at a lot more than one. And if this is the one we're recommending, it's because, we hang it on the wall. It's the best so far, and it's beaten every other one we've had hanging on the wall. And hopefully it's been hanging on the wall for a while. We've thrown a lot of contenders at it. We've really looked under every rock, and sure enough, this is the best one we have found.
Last one, get you out of here on this one, Mike. A lot of times people, if you're not familiar with how the schedule is created, it's formulaic and it rotates home and away, and you might catch an opponent, 7 times in 8 years, and 4 or 5 of them are on the road, and they think, why do we always get scheduled on the road when we play Seattle? That's one I get a lot from Vikings fans. So you explain to them how it works, and you play 6 games against your division. You play another division in the NFC. You play one division in the AFC. You play your same place finisher in the other 2 NFC conferences, and home and away rotates. So with that being said, what are your thoughts on those components of the schedule that the owners in the league have come, since realignment? This is how the schedule is going to be composed. What are your thoughts on those elements, and do you ever see that possibly changing?
I think the formula that the owners adopted back in 2002 is really fair. Prior to that, and you'll remember this, there were years when, you might go 7 consecutive years playing the same team, and for those 7 consecutive years, you could play them all in their place. Mm-hmm. Or vice versa, you might go 7 consecutive years and never play those guys. I may not have this 100% right, but I think it's something like when Jim Kelly and John Elway were in the league, I'm not sure they ever played each other in the regular season.
Wow.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So it's the new formula. What it does is it ensures that you play every team in your conference at least once every 3 years, and home and away at least once every 6 years. And same thing in the other conference, at least once every 4, and then at least once home and away every 8. So what you do get, and this obviously is no consolation to Vikings fans wondering why they're going back to Seattle again this season, but the best way to look at it is if the Vikings and the Seahawks finish in the same place in their divisions for the next 12 years, let's say, if they both win their divisions for the next 12 years straight, they'll play 6 times in Minnesota and 6 times in Seattle. It's set up so that the rotation plus the standings games ensures that over the course of time it will balance out. Obviously no consolation this year, but I assure you there will be years soon enough when Seahawks fans will be wondering why they have to keep coming to Minnesota.
That's right. And no one wants to do that because it's a hard place to play here, Mike. It gets loud in our building.
Hey.
Yeah. The draft.
Makes for good television.
Yeah, that's right. Speaking of that, good television, the draft's coming up. So you got to go. I'm sure, though, you're getting ready for the draft. You'll be in Nashville?
Yeah, the whole broadcasting team, we finish up the schedule, hopefully, the week before the schedule comes out. And then everybody gets on airplanes. When the draft was at Radio City Music Hall in New York, it was a much easier commute for those of us staffing the event. But it's been, honestly, it's been incredible moving this thing around to Chicago, Philadelphia, Dallas, and now Nashville. Really excited to see what's going to happen. I don't know if you've seen any of the artwork or any of the plans, but we're basically taking over all of Broadway, that main drag right there with all the music establishments lining both sides of the street. And, downtown as a backdrop, and it's going to be fantastic. So we're all heading down there today and tomorrow, and one more television event for the broadcasting department to put on, and then hopefully get some rest and get some tea times in May.
Okay, good for you. You've been great with us over the years, whether we run you down at the Combine or, the call that you typically do with Rob Brzezinski on schedule release day. We really appreciate all your time and effort and giving us a little bit of the inside scoop on how it works. So for folks listening who aren't familiar, Mike, you guys do a great job, and we appreciate all the information and access you give us. Thank you very much.
Always happy to talk to you guys anytime.
You bet. See you, Mike.